Good evening and welcome to a special Listen MKE edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Earl Arms. Now recently, Listen MKE tackled a major community problem, the challenge of domestic violence. Since February, there has been a dramatic increase in the incidence of domestic violence and the number of related homicides. Journalists Latoya Dennis and James Causey moderated a panel with 4 Milwaukeeans who are on the front lines of this struggle. Listen MKE is a community project in partnership between the Ideas Lab of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, WUWM 89.7 FM, Milwaukee's NPR, the Milwaukee Public Library, and Milwaukee PBS. We'll bring you highlights from the original Facebook presentation, and you'll notice a list of resources on the bottom of the screen that offers assistance and guidance. That list is also available on our website.
We have a great panel lined up today. First off, we are bringing up Carmen Petrie. She is the Executive Director of the Sojourner Family Peace Center, which provides crisis housing, advocacy, and individual support to thousands of women and children. Thank you for being with us, Carmen.
Good morning, LaTanya and James. It's an honor to be here with you and with your other guest.
Yeah. So we're seeing a crazy uptick in the number of domestic violence victims. What's happening?
We are seeing an increase. What I would say is we're in a crisis within a crisis. We had high rates of violence prior to the pandemic, but what the pandemic has done is created great stress and uncertainty in people's lives. And it's increased the stress and the isolation for survivors. You know, as you said, homicide rates have gone up. We've had 2 mass killings this year in Milwaukee. We noted that the homicide rate began to rise in the fall of last year, and it just has continued to rise since that time. We had Amara and her 2 young babies and murdered, and then the family of 5. So we're greatly concerned about the lethality rate of what women are dealing with here in Milwaukee. We know that COVID has created isolation. We know that victims are reluctant to come forward. They're afraid about their economic future. They don't know what they're going to do around childcare, whether or not they have a job or will have a job. And it's really forced victims into a position where they're choosing to stay or pressing pause on leaving because they're afraid to come forward. They're afraid they may get COVID. Our shelter has continued to operate. We were forced to reduce our capacity from 53 to 43 beds at the beginning of COVID, and we're constantly at 100% full, as most of the other shelters are. So it's really important for us to get the message out that there is help available and the shelter is open if you need to leave and become homeless because of the violence in your life. COVID has also forced you to stay in the one place that may not be safe for you. Home is not always a safe place for survivors if they're living in violence. As I said, we did some focus groups with survivors at the beginning of COVID, and they said they're uncertain, they're afraid about their future, their financial future. They're afraid about their basic needs, how they're going to live and get their needs met and care for their kids. And they also report that they're extremely isolated, and it also gives the abuser more time to control all of the circumstances in your life because of COVID. Whereas before you might be going to work or church or socializing in some capacity, you no longer have those avenues for people to connect with you. We know that violence is a learned behavior. That is both the good and the bad news of this issue. And we know that it's a long-term generational issue. For instance, we see the grandkids of the grandmothers who used to live in our shelter. So we have to do more to prevent violence in the lives of people overall, but especially at this time, getting them the message that it's safe to leave, you can leave, we're here to help, it's not your fault, and you're not alone.
You know, there are a number of things that I want to follow up on in that, but before I do, I think we should go ahead and introduce Natalie Hayden and Laverne Badger. They have a podcast called Exposed, where they have weekly conversations about healing after physical and mental abuse. Ladies, thank you for being here as well. And, you know, we just heard a bit from Carmen about what it is that we're seeing, the uptick that we're seeing. And she said something that I find to be jarring. And it's that it's a learned behavior, in that in her shelter, she sees, you know, grandchildren of women who were once abused, right? Who are there because they're being abused. Like, how do we even start to break this cycle?
You know, what I would like to say that, oh, go ahead, Carmen, I'm sorry.
I was going to say Laverne and Natalie are two amazing examples of thriving and survivors who've gotten out of that cycle of violence. So I just wanted to say that. Sorry, Laverne.
Thank you. That's okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Because again, I am now a thriver after abuse and was once a client of Sojourners. And so I think how we start to bring some closure to this is exposing it. Domestic abuse for victims was never spoken about. Like it was the the one thing you didn't have a neighbor to talk to, your mother to talk to, a family member to talk to, because there's multiple reasons for that. One, society shames you. There's judgment that comes around that. You beat yourself up for being in a situation that you feel like you may have may be the cause of. So we're saying just being able to now really talk about it and be open about our experiences and letting others know that they're not alone is huge. Because there's more of us that are talking about it, survivors, there's more resources. There's never going to be enough resources because there's always that need. But being able to communicate what is going on with domestic abuse and trying to figure it out and educate those, I think that is definitely one of the best steps to ending domestic abuse.
And what I'll say to the generations of breaking the cycle, I knew for myself that my family, my aunts and my mom had experienced Sojourner at some point, and then I had my experience as well. And I said to myself that I have to break this cycle, and my daughter will be this will be the last time that she'll experience anything like this, if I can prevent it. So, the cycle it is really intentional, I know, for me. And I know it's easy to get really caught up in the cycle of domestic abuse if we fail to talk about it and address it. So the initiative that Laverne and I expose the podcast, is that we have these conversations and we normalize having a conversation, difficult conversations at that, because domestic violence can be challenging and difficult. And it's not just intimate partner, but it can be within the family. And so when we choose to have a conversation and we say that it's okay and that we offer hope, and we're using ourselves as in being transparent in our own pain, and we're using that to inspire others, that is where I think it starts with just a conversation.
Leaving can be hard. We do not make it easy for survivors to leave. We live in a victim blaming society, but leaving is possible, and it only takes one person to break that cycle of violence. And kids are watching us. They look at us. We're role modeling what love is like and what relationships are like. And there's some research that shows by the time kids are in third grade, they already have attitudes and beliefs that either support violence against women or is against, using violence in their relationships. So we need to role model love and healing. And I just want to say, it just takes one person to begin that process of healing.
Now, there is one more person I'd like to bring in on this conversation. We have Steve Thomas. He is himself a former abuser who is now leading efforts to get male abusers to change their ways through Batter's intervention program. Steve, thank you for joining us. And so I guess I'm just going to ask you, from the perspective of men right now, we see the homicide rate up. We see obviously the domestic violence rate is up. What do you think is happening right now when it comes to men?
Well, let me start by thanking you for having me here. What's happening with a lot of men is they need to get engaged with some type of treatment that's going to help them unlearn those behaviors that they were taught in their male socialization. And also some type of treatment that's going to help them deal with their insecurities, issues around pride and ego, sexuality, mental health, and unresolved trauma. It's kind of interesting that now that there's a backlog of cases in there, there's a whole lot of men running around that are not receiving treatment. Usually a guy, when he's sentenced, he has to sign up for a batterer's intervention program right there in the courthouse. Well, that's not really happening now because a lot of court cases are on hold. And so you have these people out here roaming the streets with no type of treatment, no type of education on how to learn their behaviors and become productive members in relationships.
And so, from your perspective, is that something that can be learned?
Sure, it can be learned. 18 years ago, I was a court-ordered participant in the Nevermore program, and having a background in law enforcement and corrections, you know, there was my male socialization, but there was also the socialization around violence of, you know, having to survive in certain situations. And so it really amazed me at one point when I was rehabilitated, and it took a couple of things. It took dealing with my mental health issues, bipolar, treating bipolar with alcohol and drugs, you know, issues around sexuality. And so it was really interesting. One of my very first visits with the psychotherapist said, your secrets are going to keep you sick, and that's what you need to deal with. And so when we started doing that along with AODA and the batterers intervention treatment program, there was change, you know. And it's good to say that change is it's ongoing. It's a lifetime journey. It's not something that happens in 23 sessions, but it's definitely something that can be relearned. And we call our business Rehabilitating Men's Behaviors. Okay, and there are a lot of success stories that go along with that. But first, a person has to realize that they have some issues around, you know, violence and what it means to be a man and manhood. So when they realize that and open their minds, then they can receive the help. Once again, it's a little deeper than just batterers treatment. You know, there are a couple of supporting components that go along with it, that need to go along with it, so that we can see the change.
Mhm.
Now, this question is for anyone. I'm wondering, like, for women or men, because men can be in domestic violence relationships where domestic violence is present as well. What is something that they should be looking for? Like, before that first slap or punch or whatever it is happens, are there signs?
I do think there are signs, and I think the signs are quite obvious. I think people, you know, see the signs long before they get too deep into the relationship. It's just something that they hope they can change, or hope that the person will change. But, you know, issues around control, where you can go, who you can talk to, you know, what time you got to be home, you know, constant calls at work during the day, or if you're at home, you know, those are all signs that there's a bigger problem there.
Mhm.
And those are the signs that, like I say, to the average person, you know, you probably saw them a long time ago. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it is hard even sometimes when you recognize the signs to get away from a controlling person, because the
Mhm.
last thing that a controlling person wants to do is lose control. They can go
Right.
through any means possible to maintain that control.
Mhm. I would say an obsession with you, extreme jealousy, extreme reactions, telling you what you can wear, as Steve said, where you can go, when you can go there, controlling different aspects of your life so that your universe gets smaller and smaller and smaller over time. And we live in a culture that really is confused around that. We paint that picture as if it's love in relationships. If you're not allowed to have healthy boundaries, someone is extremely jealous. You know, survivors have said, well, I thought that that's what love was, or that was, you know, our love language. And it really is about control, as Steve said.
You know, I can hear it. I can hear people saying, because I've heard this before, you know, like, we're just so in love. We only want to be around each other. He doesn't want me to go out, or she doesn't want me to go out with any of my other friends, right? It's me all the time. And you're saying even something like that can be a sign that
Yeah.
I think when we get, all of us might want to do that for a weekend, right? When we both fall in love and we're connected, it's not to say that that energy is wrong, but if it lasts over or for an extended period of time, or becomes a behavior in the relationship, I would say that that's definitely a warning sign. Or if it moves too quickly, as I've heard Natalie say in recent conversations, too quickly, too fast.
I would piggyback off of. Oops,
Go right
sorry.
ahead.
I would piggyback off of what both are saying, and when we talk to young people, younger people, teenagers, specifically teen girls, it's not as obvious. And I think what happens is when we start to date, when young people start to date, and you get those butterflies, and you want a person to like you, that guy to like you, And yes, those little subtle signs come up, which seem like really big red flags when you're in the moment. So when I say subtle, it's like, babe, when you get home, can you make sure you text me and let me know? Or I just want to make sure that you get home safe. Let me know who you're going to go hang out with so that I can make sure that you get home safely. Or I don't want you to be influenced by the wrong person because I have your best interest in mind. So when you have it and it's confronted and rolled out to you in a way that's almost romantic, that this person is thinking of me in this way, that you allow yourself to accept it. And before, your body definitely tells you that something might be a little off when it starts to happen more often and when it gets a little bit more aggressive. But what we had found out speaking to young people is that they don't even see it as being abuse. It's just somebody who is attentive enough and want to be able to show their love towards the other person. Those are the kind of signs that we want to make sure that they understand can lead into that. The biggest sign is just to trust your instincts. You know, abusers don't show up at the door as these monsters. They're beautiful, they're handsome, they're charismatic, they can hold, people love them. They have great personalities to others. Other people outside of the home may absolutely love them. So they're not always these monsters that if you saw them coming down some dark alley, you'd be like, that is not the guy I want to be with. It's those more subtle things that we want to make sure that are bringing to your forefront of your of making sure that when you're dating someone, that is this healthy? And that's where the educational piece comes in.
Now, I want to bring in my co-moderator for this discussion, James Causey.
Hi, this is a great discussion. I think we all have a personal domestic violence story. I remember when I'm going back to 1976. I remember it specifically. One of my first babysitters, or a woman who used to keep me, she was beaten by her husband often with belts and all kinds of things like that. And my father would often step in, and other family members would step in. And then she would always say she was going to leave him. She would always say she was going to leave him, but she never did. And I noticed how the support for her started to fade over time. And so she felt like she was alone. And it's probably one of the reasons I never got into drinking and everything, because this guy was very nice. The abuser was very nice until he started drinking. And then once he started drinking, you could see the abuse starting. He was a guy that probably would have never checked into any kind of resources to help him dealing with his anger issues. So, and she was the type of person that didn't want to involve police in her business as well. And we see this happen today, like the rap star Megan Thee Stallion, who was shot by this guy named Tory Lanez. Even after she was shot by this guy, she admitted that she didn't want to tell the police that this guy had a gun in the car because she was worried about his safety and police doing something to him when they arrived at the scene. So I think women are caught in this battle of how much do you reveal, how much do you tell, because they still look out for the abuser. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I would say that you're right, James. We've created this complicated doorway for survivors to walk through, and we need to look for other options for survivors besides just engaging with law enforcement. We need community doors open. We need to work with healthcare, schools, churches. We need to open other avenues, because the choice should not be between your own safety and the safety of someone who's hurting you. And it is a very real choice for women of color to have to make, to call law enforcement when someone's threatening your life, versus not, because you're afraid that they're going to also be killed or hurt. So I don't think that that's a choice that they should have to make. And we need other avenues of help, and we need to explore that and open up those doorways. But as Steve said, we don't have a lot of ways that abusers have been able to come forward. We haven't really opened those avenues But I just want to affirm that that is a very difficult choice for survivors to make.
I agree with Carmen as well. And you can correct me if, Carmen, I believe that law enforcement has that ability now to be able to make those decisions where a victim on the scene, they have realized, does not always make that decision. And the reason being is for fear of something happening to their abuser, and also fear of that will make things worse once he gets out.
Right. For me, it's a reflection of all the opportunities we miss in life to intervene in families that are experiencing violence. For instance, what if we had doorways in healthcare settings where you could get a real intervention and step through it for some help for everybody in the family? Like, for instance, when a child is born, if we had an automatic conversation in every healthcare setting that would talk to the family about wellness and everybody's wellness and the ways that you might get hurt and wounded and the ways that you might need to heal in order to prepare to be a parent. That's a much different conversation than when you call law enforcement because someone is hurting you. So it's really, for me, a failure on our part to open up doors that really could shift the conversation from reactive to more wellness. And we know that parents want to show up for their kids. We just have to figure out how to have that positive focused conversation.
Well, Carmen, that brings up this question of finances and how much money do we incorporate into this very important topic, an issue that's impacting our community. There's not enough money going into this. That's obvious. But how do we advocate and make sure that enough money is going into these issues?
I think we need all of our leaders to be talking and thinking about this issue. They need to be creating policy. They need to be looking at funding streams. And for me, it's about opening up additional funding streams for services that need to be supported.
A lot of times when we think of domestic violence, we think of women being abused. But men can be abused and are abused as well. Like, what do you guys see when it comes to men?
Well, there are hardly any services for men. A lot of times the police reports are not written up as a domestic violence. It's written up as something totally different. Also, being part of the LGBTQ community, we definitely are totally ignored. And it's kind of interesting when you work in this field, you hear so much, and we know that you know, there are more men killing women than women killing men, but it's sometimes kind of hard because you know, our population, my population, is not recognized as far as, you know, the services they need. Where does a gay man go to get treatment, you know, if he is being abused? You know, a lot of places are not offering it. I mean, we do the best we can to meet the needs, but I mean, it's like a Band-Aid because the resources are not there.
So we started sheltering men in January of this year. Sojourner Truth House opened to male survivors, and we have sheltered 8 men to date. It took us a little while to plan to expand that service, but we've always been available to help men throughout our other programs, but we just opened shelter. I'm very happy about that. And we have had men who have stayed with us, and it's been a great service to provide to men who've been in same-sex relationships as well as men who were abused by women.
I just want to add to that too. Community Advocates has the Family Support Center, who is also serving men now. So there has been some growth taking place.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, Steve, that you mentioned that. Do you have a percentage of how many men are abused? I'm sure that they don't come forward as much because we know women don't come forward as much. So do you have any idea of how many men face abuse in relationships like this?
Because men don't come forward, we really don't know what the numbers are. I can say we probably, out of 400 men a year, we probably serve 4 or 5 men that will come forward and say they are being abused. So, I mean, the numbers are hard to predict because once again, people just don't feel comfortable coming forward.
Yeah, about 10%.
You know, it seems
about 10% of clients are male victims. Sorry, LaTanya.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm glad that we're talking about the male perspective because what happens is the physical part of domestic abuse is what is mostly focused on. There's more of a higher percentage of men that are being abused, but it's more mental and emotional abuse. And that gets swept under the rug, whether it's whether it's happening to women, but definitely men. Men are somehow, and I'm intrigued on how we gather information to support men in the way that we have over the years figured out how to support women. One, there has to be, the stigma has to go away that a male has to endure what a woman gives him because he's a man. Like, he should be able to handle that punch, that slap, or that verbal lashing that she may give him because he's a man. And society and other men do not give them permission to be vulnerable that way. So we have to figure out that way, and I'm all for it and support of how we move forward to make sure that men understand that we support them as well, but also having other men support them and not make them feel bad or weak or less than a man if they're going through this.
With that, I think we'll close this conversation that we will come back to, because unfortunately, this is not going away. So I want to thank everyone for participating in this conversation, and it's something that we will continue. Thank you.
There will be more discussion on this topic in future episodes of Listen MKE, and of course right here on Black Nouveau. The full episode of the Listen MKE session is available on our website at MilwaukeePBS.org. You'll also find a list of services and organizations available to assist if you need help. And we have a Black Nouveau web exclusive, my interview with Steve Thomas from the Nevermore program. He'll share his story of how he moved from being a batterer himself to helping others escape that cycle. That's on our website as well. And that's it for this special edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Earl Arms. Have a good evening.